All right. Well, what's up, Internet? Welcome to another edition of Twinstiq Game Club. I'm Scroo. Today we've got Yoda, as usual. Say hi.
Hello, I'm Yoda.
He's Yoda.
I'm usually here.
The not the real Yoda, but he's
No,
that Yoda. He's the
I'm
game
not
Yoda.
even gonna try to speak out of syntax too,
Yeah,
because it's hard.
it's bad. um, and of course we've also got Grey Wolf with us.
Hello there, folks.
Yeah, he's here too. And I'm sorry, but
Yay.
we missed this yesterday. Normally we do this on Sundays, but my internet has been just awful for like the last 5 or 6 weeks or more. So I was not around. I didn't even get it back for like middle evening. So anyway, we didn't do it yesterday. Today we're doing it though because it's back and stable. And we're talking about ABZû.
For now, right?
Today's game club is ABZû.
Yes, ABZû,
This is
which was absolutely amazing.
ABZû.
I was waiting for someone to make that pun because I've seen it all over the internet when I read stuff about ABZû.
Oh, good. I'm glad I'm not original then. Perfect.
Yeah.
Very good. Well, that's kind of interesting because ABZû isn't really original.
Yeah, it follows basically the exact same story structure as Journey,
Yeah.
beat for beat.
Yeah.
But that's not
Well-
really a huge fault to it, because it
No,
tells it in a very different way.
Yeah, and it's developed by some of the same people. The art directors, I believe, are one of the people that were.
The art director of Journey.
The art director
is-
from Journey was a big part of ABZû.
Yep, he's the main director of this game, and the guy Asta Winnery, the same guy who did the soundtrack to do that game, to do this game, and they feel
Yeah.
pretty different.
Soundtrack is great for this game,
Oh,
but
yes.
we're gonna go into all this stuff. But ABZû is if you don't know, by looking at the thumbnail, you're a diver looking at oceany stuff in the ocean, and that's about it. Really, there's a story there, but it's all visual and musical storytelling, and I think it does a great job at that. And it's kind of interpretive. You can go a lot of different ways with it, but I really loved it, and I thought it would be a great addition for the game club. Very short, but I think it took me a total of 3 hours.
Yeah, I'm not sure how long it took me to beat it. I guess I could open up Steam and look.
Yeah, and that was I even went back a couple of chapters and released some fish from little schools that were captured that I missed before or whatever, and
Yeah.
I had a good time with this one though. I really enjoyed it, and it's something you can go back to and play, and it's a good happy feeling game.
For a lot of the game, anyway.
For a lot of
yeah,
it, there's a couple.
There are a few fuck your heart moments, but it's
Yeah. It redeems itself though.
Yes.
Yeah, it does.
Directly after those moments, in like probably the most gleeful like happy
Oh
ending
my-
I've ever seen.
Yes.
But
we'll
yeah,
definitely
let's
get
talk
into that.
about it.
Yeah, because
Let's talk
I
about it,
think
'cause-
obviously we'd all recommend this game. So if you haven't played it, go play it. Then come
Yeah,
back
definitely
because we're
go
going to
play it.
talk all the spoilers. So
Yeah, not that the spoilers matter. They don't matter in this game.
No, because it's a lot of people gonna interpret it differently.
yeah,
Right, it's not a narrative
absolutely.
storytelling, so you can look at this however you like, and I mean I think it's leading you into a specific area, but I think it feels really good.
And really, if you played Journey, then you more or less know what's coming. So it's not
Right,
like
Yeah.
any of this is a real surprise.
right. So I personally really liked the environments in this,
Oh,
and
they're
I know I sound just like
gorgeous.
the Nerd Crew guys. Me personally, I love
Me
this.
personally, I love this thing. Yes.
I love the environments. They're simple, but they're so like I don't know, elegant.
They're not
And,
Yeah.
really simple. They're actually pretty damn complicated. There's a lot of moving pieces going on. Nothing
Yes.
ever
Sure,
feels
sure. No,
static. And when you do
Yeah,
get
no.
into areas that don't have life, it's for purpose and it feels wrong because of it. There's never like,
Yeah.
Yes.
oh man, this doesn't feel, like the under the sea, but it totally does constantly. There's just schools of fish going around constantly. There's lots of little specks of stuff just floating around in the water.
Yeah.
Seaweed flowing everywhere. It's always moving, and it's beautiful. It's absolutely cool.
Yeah,
And there's sun shafts and that kind of thing, and it's a really the environments are amazing, basically.
Yeah, really, really cool. And if you just sit in the water, if you just float in the water, the current kind of takes you back and forth.
Yeah.
You don't just hold still. You sort of float around.
You know those shark meditation staff things? I would just sit on those for a while and just stare around at things and use the camera
just
to
watch.
go from school to school and learn.
Yeah.
Oh, that's what an angelfish looks like. That's cool.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. So I've mentioned, I think last week when we were talking about this, that this is an Unreal 4 engine game, Unreal Engine 4. Yeah. And it's highly, highly, highly optimized, and I still received a few frame drops here and there.
Yeah, there are spots where there's just so much happening on screen that the engine just can't cope.
Yeah,
I never had an issue, and I played this whole game on my couch through my Steam Link too. And it ran perfectly fine the whole time. I was very impressed with it.
I'm not talking major one. I'm talking like I went from 60 to like 57.
Oh.
They're small frame drops, but you notice them because up until then the game is super duper smooth all the time, and then suddenly it sort of stutters a tiny bit, and then it comes back.
I think maybe the only time I would notice is at the end when you finally get to take out your revenge on the prisms, and you're going through just a fuck ton of them and creating lots of particle effects. But
well, I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that there are literally hundreds of individually rendered and animated objects, units.
Yeah, tons of fish
moving
and stuff. They're not the most complicated polygraphical models, but they look really great and they fit within the world that's crafted.
Yeah,
super well, and they're so well animated that you don't notice.
The textures are also very cleverly hidden. Like you'll see an angelfish, and you'll see lots of angelfish. But the way they make it work is they bundle them together so closely that it's very difficult to tell the one texture from the other texture. And you'd think that for how much bundling together they do, it would be super obvious, but it never really is.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if you took close notice at a lot of the schools of fish and stuff, but not all of them have the exact same texture, even within the same school of fish. Like a clown,
that's very cool.
Like a clownfish stripes and stuff isn't just copy pasted to another clownfish. There are a couple variations of them.
Yeah, there are a few variations. The dolphins as well.
Yeah, the texture work in this game alone could be talked about forever because all the sharks and whales and stuff are perfectly nailed. It must have taken them forever to replicate that stuff from actual whale life and stuff. But my God, they did an amazing job.
Yeah.
I think that a lot of research went into this one. Like, to make it, a lot of research went into it.
Yep.
Because
I would think so.
I came across a comment that there was a guy who was a marine biologist, and he said, just looking at it, everything looks fairly authentic. It's never going to be properly authentic because, of course, Giant Squid are not marine biologists. But
and it's technically a fantasy game too, so...
Yeah. But they got, pretty close, and he was glad of that.
Yeah, no, I really liked the way it plays out. It's a happy feeling. There are a couple of kind of properly creepy moments, when you end up in the sort of ocean graveyard, and and you start realizing the big enemy of the game, and that you're a part of the big enemy of the game for some reason. And the cute little robot helpers that you have are
they're adorable.
Those things are great.
But that's a good twist on things, actually, I thought, because there's these cute little things that couldn't in no way harm anything, but the first thing they do is tear pieces of the environment apart so move through them.
That's true.
I was the first time that happened, I was horrified. I was like, "What are you doing? Why are you doing that?"
But it makes sense since it's all tied to the prisms that clearly.
Yes.
Yeah, and for me, I also looked at this, and this is my interpretation, of course, that the main character is you, but it's not. I don't really feel like you are the main character. I feel like the Great White is the main character.
is definitely the main character. Yeah.
And at first you're like, oh man, that thing's pretty scary looking. I hope it doesn't attack me, and then it never does.
And then it never does.
The Great White is Tron, and you are Jeff Bridges, basically.
That's
kind of how it works out story-wise.
Right.
So cool, man. Just so cool. I really like it. I don't have a lot to say about it technically. It just is such an enjoyable
Yeah,
such an
they
enjoyable
created
game.
a really great environment. The coding is great. The character controller itself feels amazing. Everything feels
Oh yeah.
really great to control. It feels kind of like playing a space simulator, and they play around with that idea of sea and
Yeah.
space in the in between things, which I
Yeah.
really
They
like because
do.
it harkened back to an old album that I really like from BT Bam about that balance between space and seas of space and how they kind of tied into each other. So it was kind of cool to see that in this game because that's something that I've enjoyed in music for a while. But the character controllers are great across the board too because if you hop onto a dolphin, suddenly your character control is totally different. You go super fast and you're really nimble, but you can't turn super quickly because you're going so fast. All the sharks
Yeah.
control really differently. The whales and orcas and stuff like that. It's great.
Yeah. I don't know if did you ever hit trying to remember what it is. For me, it was middle mouse button or maybe E, and you'll do a flip while you're swimming around in the water,
Yes.
and the fish around you
Yeah.
will follow you.
Yeah, that was
Now, if
And
you-
that's adorable. That's like so sweet
Yeah.
when they do that.
Yeah, and if you're moving, right, if you're moving forward and you do that, you will boost yourself. Now you can boost yourself normally, but if you can boost yourself further, and your flippers are turned gold, and you'll move super fast.
Yeah.
And if you can do that and jump out of the water, generally you'll get a nice crowd of dolphins, or fish or,
Dolphins or something
just jumping on it.
just jumping with
had
you,
that
and
happen
that's
with the
also
whales a few
the-
times too.
The first time I saw that happen, I was like, "What?
yeah.
Yeah,
What? This is amazing!" I spent
it
probably
was
20
so
minutes
satisfying.
just
Yeah,
doing that.
yeah. The first time I figured I could jump out of the water on the back of a killer whale, I was like, "Oh yeah, we're gonna do this for a while. I don't care what the game wants me to do, but this is amazing."
Yeah.
But that's okay. So let's
And then I
pause there
spent
for a minute. Because,
basically every animal I tried to do that with after.
Yeah.
let's actually pause there for a second because that's something I wanted to talk about. ABZû is spiritually descended from Journey, and the big problem that I had with Journey mostly was that Journey wanted you to keep moving forward all the
Yeah.
time.
There's some exploration to be done in Journey, but not quite here. There's no reason to just play around in Journey.
Yeah.
Right. Because a lot of it is about doing the platforming and earning your scarf and making bigger jumps. In ABZû, the game wants you to slow down. Wants you to look around and find things. And I thought that was a great departure from the Journey formula because you don't have to keep going forward. You don't have to keep going fast. You can just take it at your own pace.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
you can do it at your own pace.
That's the reason why they
That
set
doesn't-
up those statues of sharks too, to just meditate on for a while and just absorb the world around you and soak it all in.
Right.
You can actually do that at any time and meditate. You can do that from the menu.
The main
Just
menu.
hit escape and hit
Oh.
and hit meditate, and
Oh,
you can just
cool.
sit there. Yeah, it's
I
it's
didn't
really cool
notice
because
that.
you can just leave the game up and it'll just run like a really pretty screensaver
Oh my
for as long
god,
as you
yeah.
have.
I admit that.
Um,
I'm sure people have made some great live screensavers out of
Yeah.
this game too.
Oh yeah, I imagine. So I to Gray's point, it's true. The game does slow you down. The environments are open. They're really nice and open, and you can move around them. That doesn't necessarily mean there's lots of exploration to be had, but
No.
you're allowed to move around them as often as you like. You can, or as much as you like, or as little as you like.
Right.
It's totally your own pace, other than a few levels where you have to like ride a current.
Yeah, and that's also pretty cool because one of the things
it's
that
all
happens there is that it goes visually fast, and then when it goes visually fast, what ends up happening is you end up swimming into schools of other fish, and as you sort of swim into them, they will turn around and start following you and swim along with you, and you can sort of tag a whole bunch of them and make a huge school of fish that's just following you. And it looks visually like very, very awesome.
That's all connected.
Those
very
moments,
end scene.
Those moments kind of reminded me a lot of Flower too. I'm not sure if the director
Yes.
is the art director on that
It is.
too, but he
Yeah.
may well have been because it definitely felt like a combination of Flower and Journey, which I mean, yeah, you can't go wrong
Right.
with
So
that.
those fish, and I may be mistaken. I didn't actually look this up. I meant to yesterday. But if those fish, all that you collect in those currents, I believe, are the ones that show up with you in the last level. The very
that's
very
cool.
end, you have this huge long stream of fish behind you, and I think that's all those that you've collected
Yeah,
through.
because you
That's
can't
really awesome.
miss some. Because I missed a couple going through the currents too. So that's cool.
There are also the Nautilus shell collectibles, which I'm not real sure what they do actually.
They don't do anything. The little shell things that you go up to and you open, and then the fish will out.
Yeah.
No. The Nautilus shells. They're little
collectible shells.
They're little collectibles.
I didn't even know that you could do that. Wow.
Okay. They seem to show up when you show up in the, and I'm using air quotes, Atlantean buildings. As you swim through and you look on the walls, they'll show up on the shelves, and I don't know if that's like supposed to symbolize putting things back to nature.
No.
Or,
okay, so what happens if you go into, because there's little black portals that you go into, right?
Yes.
And when if you took the time to swim up to the top, you will see those shells at the top as well.
Right. Yeah. I see. I noticed
they're all dotted around there. So I think that it's restoring that temple.
Maybe it's filling the world.
Oh, that makes sense. Yeah, because in the space area, they're all they're in the upside down. You collect them.
That's right.
So I wonder if you collect them all, then the upside down is totally completed.
Maybe because I didn't actually find them because I didn't know that you could interact with them. So when I went into the space bit for the first time, I was like, "This is really cool," and I spent some time there actually just swimming around it. You know?
I swam to all the 4 points and stuff before I moved along the first time. I was like, this is awesome. Because I was just like, I just need to play BT Bam and then just sing about how there's an endless space within a sea of space, because that's exactly what this is. Made me really happy.
Yeah, it's just so... we're talking about negative things. We were briefly, because we can't stay on them because there are virtually none.
Well, there are one or two bad things, and I'll talk about
there's really one glaring thing that I.
My major thing, and I want to say this. Mm-hmm. My major thing about this game is the focus on this game is a nice, chill play style. Okay, it doesn't promote violence or any kind of reactionary caution or whatever. But then suddenly, a freaking cave-in falls onto a shark and kills it, and then you are suddenly fighting stuff, and that really broke immersion for me. Mm-hmm. The mines and that I see its point afterwards. It made sense, but when it happened, I was like, oh man, I was so enjoying myself in this. I didn't feel like I had to think a lot. I could just move around, and suddenly now it's a combat game, and I didn't really appreciate that.
Now it's like a stealth and combat game. Yeah, that's true.
But it redeemed itself, of course. At the end, it really redeemed itself, and I had a good time.
That's interesting because I never actually got any combat. I got the mines, but no combat.
Well, you have to ride the shark
into that would technically be combat. Is at the end when you're riding the shark and smashing all the tiny prisms to sink the prisms.
Oh, okay, sure. Okay.
Or it's a puzzle. I don't know. I really want, but
it's not even really a puzzle because it's not that hard. You smash all of them, and then the thing breaks, and everyone's happy.
The thing that I thought was going to start happening that I'm really surprised didn't happen. There's an area you get to. I think it's the first time you have to start the engine for the chains, and before I found the engine, I noticed all the hammerhead shark statues. And I found a little reef thing where I freed hammerhead sharks, and I went, oh, I must have to destroy things with a hammerhead shark.
Yeah.
So I rode on a hammerhead shark, tried to smash into stuff, and it didn't do anything.
And that didn't work,
And I thought that would be really cool to have puzzles that require certain animals for you to ride on, and you have to go solve them with those. Like maybe you have to, poke something with a dolphin's nose or stab something with a swordfish and stuff like that. I thought that was a really big missed opportunity, and that's really the only negative I have with the game, was that I really thought they were going to do something like that, and they never did.
I feel the opposite way, because I think that would have been detracted from ABZÜ as it is. Turning it into a game about
puzzles.
Laid back it is.
Yeah. Because the game itself is a puzzle, and so adding that layer onto it would have been... I don't know, it would have been like the game beating you over the head with I'm a puzzle that is a puzzle.
That's true.
Don't get me wrong, I do think that riding sharks around and like I don't know, jumping through hoops or whatever on dolphins or something, that would have been really cool.
I still had a blast riding around on sharks and shit. Don't get me wrong. I literally, as soon as I was able to ride a manatee, I was like, okay, this is my game.
That was it.
Yeah.
this is amazing. And then I got to ride a sperm whale and a kraken,
Yeah.
and I was done. I was like,
And
oh
that
my
was
god,
that.
this is the best.
That's awesome,
This is
stuff.
my dream.
And how cool is like the prehistoric stuff? You get in, there's like coelacanths and not a plesiosaur. I can't remember what they called it. It wasn't a plesiosaur, but they're like the old like prehistoric animals.
The fucking dinosaur that you find. I was like, bullshit. What the hell
Yeah,
is
that was
this?
also pretty cool.
I really liked it.
No, it was cool.
And I really appreciated the times when you got to actually get up and walk around on land. I really didn't expect it to happen.
Yeah, I didn't expect that to happen either. But that was cool.
And
one
it did it cool.
One of those nautilus shells was up on a thing that you had to walk up on land too.
Yeah, it seems like
okay.
I sort of remember that.
I'll have to give
diving
that
from
the diving was what made walking worth it totally. Every time I
yeah, that's
off
right,
a ledge,
because
I was just
you
like
knew
the
that you were
most
going to end up
satisfying thing ever.
Yeah, that you knew that you were going to end up at a high point, and you knew that you're going to be able to dive down and back into the water, and that was amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, such a good time. I do. I want to bring up the music as well, because I just don't. It's a really cool like swimming exploration 3D space game, but I don't think it would be as great feeling without the soundtrack.
Yeah. No,
absolutely.
A lot like Journey. The score is the story. It is gorgeous.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. And actually, very recently, it seems. I thought this had happened a while ago, but very recently, it seems that you can actually buy the soundtrack separately.
Yeah, that started happening in February.
This month.
If you do want to just buy the soundtrack and you've watched someone play the game and you'd have no interest in buying the game, the soundtrack is available on Austin Wintory's Bandcamp. If you just Google Austin Wintory ABZÜ.
Right, and you want to give them all the money.
Yeah, because if you buy the soundtrack on Steam takes like a third of it.
It might even be worth. It might even be worth putting that in the
description
in the video description for this afterwards.
I'm just gonna do that right now. It's
only
$6. It's I mean, you can't beat that.
Right.
Well, you could. Free would beat it, but I'd rather pay for it. It's really
I want to get
I want to reward him. he did an amazing
that's
job.
literally what I was gonna say. He did a good
because
job.
I bought his Journey soundtrack too a while back. So
cool. So obviously, this game's very colorful. So that must have been a high point for Gray, because he and I both, well, all of us, are getting a little sick of the brown game.
Yep, the brown game.
Well, the last brown game we played was in Gray's.
We did actually. So I shouldn't even.
That's
be saying
true. Primordia was a very brown game, but it was
was.
also
But I warned you
for
about
its
that.
narrative.
Yes, I thought that was actually really good for what Primordia was, but every level here too has very good color palette. It changes constantly.
I actually want to talk about that, because when I was playing it, I was thinking about that. It's a very interesting way that they do the palette, because what they do is they start you off at a very bright point, and then it gets like exponentially darker. And the way I was thinking about it was, it's kind of like a day in the life of this guy, because you start out at morning and then afternoon, and then the palette goes evening and then night, because it gets, darker each time. And then when you hit the bad spot, it starts turning into dawn again, because it's red. And I thought that was an interesting design choice. I don't know if they thought about it that way, but it's a very
they
cool
definitely
idea.
did, because I picked up on that in Journey too, and we can talk a little bit, I guess, about how this is almost beat for beat the same way Journey plays out, which I don't think is a negative at all. But I noticed that too, because Journey does a very similar thing. But I don't think the color palette totally changes in Journey. Quite the way it does here.
It's mostly sandy and
the theme
yellow.
of dawn to night and then dawn again is very prevalent in Journey as it is here.
Yeah.
I sort of felt like the color palette changed and got darker the worse things got.
Yes, that too. But I mean, that's
it was also part of storytelling. It wasn't.
Yes.
It wasn't just that this took a day or whatever to complete. No. Although I did notice that
it also
too. It was
made
really
sense
cool. It was
though too for
cycle
for where you were in the environment and stuff. Like the Hammerhead area where I was just telling you about had very green and orange and reds. It was like fall color palettes, right?
Right.
Yeah. Right.
The other thing that I've seen advanced as a comment about this is that the one of the core thoughts that people have about it is that the shark is leading you ever downward, and as you go down in the sea, it gets darker because, of course, of the lack of light that is able to penetrate as you go downward. And I think that is essentially correct here. Every time you are in an area in ABZÜ, you are going ever deeper into
further into the abyss
where you are being led. Right? Yeah.
I'm gonna do a. Where's our conversation at here? I want to upload a screenshot that I took. It won't matter to the internet community, maybe who are listening here, but for these guys, I really liked the view that you could put on yourself, and you could there were certain areas where it was just a vast open space.
Yep.
And I really enjoyed that, and I cannot find our freaking conversation in this Skype. I don't know why. There we go. Okay.
So while you're doing that, there are a couple of negative things, and I do want to bring them up, but I want to bring them up real quick. One of the problems that I had was that it's a very, very open game for the most part. You know, it's okay. It is one big long tunnel. You're going down a big long tunnel.
Yeah.
But the spots where you stop and pause, it is very open, and you can swim around and you can explore. But there is a problem with this in that it looks like it's more open than it really is, because the second you budge up against an imaginary wall, the guy literally turns you around with a little yellow cone and says, "No, go this way."
Yeah.
I thought that was a bit
there is a back to the mission area type of thing going on there, and the picture's up in Skype. I don't know if you guys can see that or not.
Yes, I just grabbed it, and I can actually throw it. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty. Pretty.
Yeah, and that area to me, that area made me a little scared, actually.
Oh yes. Why?
When you're first floating out over that, well, because I love the ocean, but I'm really scared of like super open water. That freaks me right out.
Yeah, because that's right after the great shark eats one of your little helpers, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember stopping at each one of those little platforms and looking around and making sure he wasn't around anymore.
Yeah.
Very much so.
I had a different reaction to the shark. The first second that he ate one of my helpers, I kind of understood what he was doing, because the way ABZÜ kind of got sold to me was it's a story about machines and the environment and animals and the environment. And so when you woke this thing up, because it was very adorable and all that, it was also a machine. So when he ate it, I was like sort of sympathetic, okay, sure. I get why you're doing that, just so long as you don't do it to me.
Yeah.
And the Great White Shark was, he was... I didn't think of him as scary. I just thought of him as a character in the game that might be a little more meddlesome than he had turned out to be.
Yeah.
Because I was a little worried that I would get to a point where I would be trying to open up an area, and then he would come and eat my little guy, and I'd have to go and find another one, and it would be a problem like that. But he never actually did that. And so when he dies, I was kind of depressed. I was like, no.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it was saddening. I didn't really think too much of the shark hitting me either. I was just kind of like, I mean, it's a shark. They eat everything.
Yeah.
They pull license plates out of it and fucking Jaws.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so I just kind of moved along, but every time I would see it further down the line, I'd go, oh, all right, I'll just follow the shark, I guess, because I guess another negative would be there's not really like a mountain in this game. In Journey, it does a very great job of visually showing you a very tall mountain
where you're going,
and it doesn't tell you, hey, go to the mountain. But because it's a mountain and because it's a natural instinct for people to climb, we see a pretty mountain, we go, well, I'm gonna go to that fucking mountain.
Yep.
And then
there is nothing like that.
On a grand adventure we go, and in ABZÜ it's very much a meandering exploration focused game, which is
that's
fine.
True.
And I guess
there is the red light, right, that shows up, and you eventually are like, okay, this is symbolic of something, and you end up there. But it's never quite as telegraphed as that.
Yeah, and even then, the shark goes through that the first time. The great white goes through that. So technically, I guess the great white would be your mountain, but he doesn't even show up for a good portion of the game.
A long time again after that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
but when you find him crushed under one of those little prisms, I was like, suddenly I care about you.
yeah.
It was very well
and the
done.
fact that they immediately sort of make it your friend, right? Because it shows its appreciation for you helping it.
Yeah.
Well, it does that at a very smart time too, because it had just introduced you to the idea of prisms, and prisms aren't good. They're not good at all. It sucks when they blow up on your body. And then you immediately become sympathetic when you see that it happened to the Great White.
Right. It took me, I don't know about you guys, it took me a long time to figure out that I was even a machine.
I didn't.
I didn't get that immediately, but the more I thought about it, the more I was like, oh, okay, yes, that makes sense.
The fact that you could breathe underwater forever, like
yeah.
There was but
I just didn't question that at first. I was like, the fucking Atlanteans figured it out, because that's what I am.
Yeah. Right.
We figured that shit out long ago.
Right,
but,
because the thing is that the way his suit looks, it looks very futuristic. So my take was, this is the future. This guy's got a futuristic suit on, and he can breathe forever. Right, something is synthesizing air out of the moisture around him. But then, my first inkling that there was something not right was the minute you wake up one of those little droids, the little robots, and the robot's super happy to see you.
Yeah.
And you can make a ping at it, and they can ping you back. Now, the thing that struck me as odd about that is that, sure, humans would maybe be able to talk to the droid, but not in that kind of way, not with a specific kind of a pinging thing. Because we would want to talk to it in English. And so my first instinct was, this is the ping from Journey, but different, because it means something to the robot. And that was my initial inkling that something was not right with my guy.
Yeah.
It took me a lot longer to figure out that he was mechanical, but it is sort of implied from everything that you see. We haven't actually talked about the story of ABZû, so we should probably talk about that.
Well, I went ahead and put up another screenshot too. The first, well, probably not the first big hint, but one of the major hints that the game gives you that you're part of the problem originally.
Yes. Yep.
Is in that picture. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Story though.
Okay. Yeah. Do you want to do this?
Well, I think my interpretation might be different from other people's.
Okay, sure, go.
But to me, it felt like maybe this took place a long time ago. I'm not saying it happened right now. I think this is probably an ancient thing. It's happened maybe thousands of years ago. You only see portions of civilization. Of course, it's what I would think of as Atlantean or some other sort of lost continent or civilization. And that there is maybe even some sort of I don't even know how to characterize them as an alien civilization, maybe, or if they were human or just highly advanced to make the robotics and the sentient machines, and that they have collected fish or collected life, whether they were to hold them in captivity for like a zoo or something. I never really got that squared away, but either way, I found out that those were the bad guys, and that you were originally maybe part of this bad thing, and you were fixing it. Now that's obviously that just takes place for you, but for me it was just about I don't know, putting nature back to nature.
Yeah,
right.
I definitely kind of had the same interpretation, because the first time you see the Atlantean paintings and stuff on the wall there, they all look very similar to you, and so I think something happened, and for some reason I'm the last one. And
that was
it does play a lot with space and stuff like that, and one of the first shots of the game is it going from the stars and then circling down onto you in the ocean. And so you almost have to wonder if maybe they, left planet If their civilization got to the point where they were actually able to create spacecrafts and leave, and for some reason you're here, and you're kind of rediscovering everything and learning that they worshipped sharks and then created technology to try to control them, and now you're releasing them all now that nobody's here. That's kind of what I got out of it.
The reason I feel that this is ancient was because at each time you complete a stage, there comes this I want to call primordial soup sort of fills up.
Yeah.
The area, and it's like you're seeding the world for its future or something of that nature is what I felt.
So I can completely verify your idea because the word ABZÜ is actually Sumerian, and Sumerian is a very old culture that died out. Okay, yes. So the word ABZÜ literally means AB is a word in Sumerian for water, and ZÜ is deep. And some contributors have suggested that this is the wisdom of the deep, basically.
Yeah.
But the fact that it because if you look at the paintings on the walls, they look very Sumerian because they're a lot of them are about sort of stalks and agriculture and harvesting, and it's a very Sumerian looking thing. So I'm gonna agree with you that the setup is very old, possibly Atlantean, and I'm also going to agree with you that probably what happened was because I've been doing some reading about ABZÜ. These people harvested energy because if you look at what's going on in some of the paintings, they're able to control that energy, but they have to physically use red jars to go and collect the energy out of the water.
Mm-hmm.
So they had a sort of symbiotic relationship with the land around them, or the water around them, because sometimes they would pour the energy back into the ocean and the fish would come up, much like what happens with you when you go into the little rings and you free the fish. Okay, so you're giving back some of your energy and the fish are all like, oh, we're released now. But then your civilization got to a point where they were very, very advanced. And instead of harvesting by hand, they start harvesting with these pyramids. And that was too much harvesting. And so the balance kind of got tipped in the favor of the machines, not the animals. And this broke the rhythm of what they were doing. And that ended their civilization.
Okay. Yeah, and actually listening to you say that, remembering going back through and watching all the paintings and seeing the frescoes and stuff in these old buildings. Yeah, I remember seeing pictures of them pouring essentially water back into the water.
Right. And then the fish come upward.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And even during those the times where there are like keys, maybe I would say. Where
yes.
You interact with an object that creates a little waterfall that moves into another area.
And unlocks a partial part of the door and stuff like that. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. It seems to be that essence that they're pouring back in. So yeah, I think that's a very cool analogy.
And the thing is that you discover that you're a robot because you end up in a harvesting plant. You end up in one of these pyramids that's super big, and you walk around it. You kind of explore around it a little bit, and then you come to a point where it shows you a hologram of the basic harvesting function, and then it dawns on you because you also see some of the little robots being constructed, and you see the pyramids being constructed. And hey, wait, this is not right. What's happening here is not good.
A little too industrial.
Yeah,
and then it's totally affirmed when you are greatly damaged, and you see the sort of robotic skeleton. It's got this really, really cool visual storytelling, and it's interpretive. You can make it what you will of it.
Oh yeah,
it definitely steers you in a direction, and I'm glad to see that there's actually a real sort of explanation for it. I had no idea that ABZÜ was a Sumerian word.
Yeah, I didn't either. I'm looking at it now and stuff too. Also known as E squared ABZÜ, House of the Cosmic Waters, apparently.
Yep, that's right.
Yeah.
And if you look at the Sumerian words, it's actually very interesting because the Sumerian words are written a lot like the way the stylized stuff is happening in the cabins.
Oh, cool.
So it all sort of ties back. And it's wonderful because it's obvious that the people who made this game sat down and thought about this a lot, but they were okay with people coming up with different interpretations. Because I can tell you now that the way I am seeing it is not the way a lot of other people are seeing it. I mean, you guys had totally different interpretations of the story.
Well, and that's cool. That's a sign of good storytelling too. So
yeah.
Yep. George Lucas, are you listening?
No.
We're going to do this with every story-based game, George. You should listen more.
Every time we're like, man, this is a great story. Hey, George.
Are you listening?
Put out your little steno pad. So, I don't know. I feel like we've talked a lot about ABZÜ. I really... What's up?
Sorry. There was one other negative thing I wanted to say. Yoda, you were talking about the character controller. There were parts where I felt the character controller was a bit awkward. Like, if you wanted to get your guy to face upward so he could swim upward, that was a bit of a mission sometimes. It wasn't always. I mean, if you knew where you were and you knew what you were doing, it was probably the yaw control that I had the most problem with. No. Because that was just wonky.
Maybe you just need to get good. No,
I'm kidding. Get good.
Oh my God.
Get good at ABZÜ. Learn to play.
No, I could see it. I could see how some people might have trouble with that and stuff. I've played a lot worse flying games. And
the good thing is if you're having trouble with the orientation for controls, because it's airplane controls, up is down, down is up. You can invert those.
Yep, you can flip them all. And that was super good.
And then just like in the real ocean, if you're swimming and you get disoriented, you just look for light and go that way.
Yes. And that actually happened in one of the super dark sections. I didn't want to explore because I didn't want to get lost. And then I was wandering around and found a light, and I was like, "Oh, good, I'll go there."
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is why I was kind of grateful that ABZÜ was so relaxed about everything, because I was a bit worried, especially once you get to the mines. I was a little worried that it was going to turn into an arcade game and you'd have to dodge things. Yeah. And it turns out that you don't have to do that, thank God.
You kind of have to dodge the stupid little mine prisms, but...
Yes.
Well, there's also that very satisfying...
pace, so...
There's also the very satisfying portion, when you have to very cautiously swim through like the large room that's just filled with those things.
Yeah, that was one screen
I just swam.
Yeah.
Yeah, I stared at it for the longest time. I was like, fuck it. And I just swam straight forward and got blasted a lot, but I just kept moving. And
yeah. I went under.
I don't know if you can die or not, but
no, you can't. No. ABZÜ's very forgiving.
But you can be really held up.
Yes,
but it was really cool when you got to ride the shark and he just busted through and you're like, yeah, fuck you, and that was the greatest thing. It was cool.
I didn't actually ride the shark. He went along with me as I was destroying them, but I was grateful that he was with me, because what happens in ABZÜ is there comes a point where the shark actually sacrifices himself to try and stop the machine. And he dies, and it's a terrible thing when it happens. Yeah, because like I said, I wasn't anti the shark at all. I was genuinely.
Oh no! By that time, he's your friend. He's a positive character, and it's a very sad thing when it happens. Yeah.
Right. Well, I felt about that. I felt that about him all the way through. I felt that he was just a character, and I was willing to.
Yeah, he's a shark.
Or she.
Right, or she. I was willing to accept what they were doing because they are just nature, and that's just how it works. And so I wasn't actually consciously thinking about the shark until it started popping up again, Yeah. And then there's this moment where he or she or it sacrifices itself to destroy the machine. I was like, why did you do that? That was dumb. I could have helped you.
No, I thought that was cool. I thought that was actually going to be like the end of the game, and then it doesn't work, and I was like, oh no.
Yeah, right. And the worst part is that you have to go down to him and sort of send him off to death.
Yeah,
You float down to him and you
that moment was animated so well. It was such a heartbreaking thing, and the little light just comes up on her eye. It's like, oh my god, it was horrible.
Yep.
And then again, vindication, because at the end it's like Ghost.
Yeah, Ghost Shark
joins you.
You
in the
literally
water,
get to fight with Ghost Shark.
Yeah, you're each time you complete a level, you put a part of yourself into this corner, which is why I got the reseeding the world kind of thing.
Yeah.
Right.
Putting the energy back as it was.
Yes.
As it would be, and it grows like this big coral thing, and at that point you do that, and the shark comes back, and then you're repaired. Your body is repaired, but not only that, you're like Super Saiyan ABZû swimmer guy.
Yes. And that was a bit problematic for me because he was going much faster than I was used to.
No, I love that. I was like, oh yeah, just give me all the speed, buddy.
Yeah, it was so much fun, and you're just jumping out of the water all over the place, and then the whales are breaching all over, and I mean it's like the happiest ending.
Yeah.
Yeah. It really was. That was awesome.
It was great.
So cool. Anyway, any last thoughts, guys? Any last thoughts? I think we've talked about this a lot.
Before you do that, the one thing that I thought was also super cool was that at the very, very end, when you've destroyed all of the little energy harvesters, what happens is that the main energy harvester, the big one that is the problem, starts growing fungi and moss. And it literally gets destroyed. And that is the best feeling in ABZû.
Yeah.
It was really cool. There are a lot of really great moments. The thing that scared me the most actually was when you're in the first current and the fucking killer whales just come right on top of you. That scared me. That scared me a lot more than the sharks.
I actually really my favorite scene is still when you're diving deep and then the blue whale shows up right next to you.
Yes.
And its eyes like
that is amazing.
It's so big and giant, and you're just like, I love the moment too later in that scene where his mouth looks like it's about to come down on you, and it's actually just to the left of you, and it was like, I was screaming like, oh god, no. It was great. But I was also totally down to do explore the shark's body kind of thing. So that the whale's body, swim out of the whale.
Jabu.
Yeah. I would have been down for that too, but no, this game's amazing. There's it's priceless. Even if this was $50, I think I'd be totally happy with it.
Yeah.
There's tension where there needs to be tension, and there's happiness where it needs to be, and everything's very satisfying, and it's a hell of a thing. I really enjoyed it. This one, I think, did you bought this for me for Christmas, it seems like, Cody, right? I'm trying to remember.
Yeah, I can't remember. I think so.
I think that's what it was. Because I mentioned something like, ABZÜ's on sale, and Cody's like, well, now you have it, or something of that nature. Yeah, right on. So... definitely I recommend this game 100%. It's super cool. It's got like basically as much replayability as you want it to have.
Yeah, it's
so
filled with life, and there's a lot of these, like, I can't call this a walking simulator or first person experience type of game, but for a lot of the artsy type games where you kind of just go from a place to place and experience a story, they're not nearly as filled with life as this game is, in so many facets.
Even, like, going back to Ethan Carter, even for how pretty that game was, it was fairly dead, you know?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it definitely was. Also very colorful, which was nice. But I think Ethan Carter was supposed to be a little bit dead, right? Because it's just the way it's narrated.
Because there are dead people in Ethan Carter.
Ethan's dead.
Plot
twist. But yeah, I look forward to seeing what this director does more, because he clearly he seems to have been was not just a small part in Journey and Flower, because he's got it all right here. And it makes me curious to see what that game company actually does next, now that he's not with them.
I'd love to see like just a nice big open area, like just a giant open area that you can swim around in ABZÜ like that.
Like a giant
that would be super cool, just because of
city.
just play around, jumping out of the water, riding dolphins and doing flips and just like cool stuff. I'd like to see that happen. Maybe even as DLC for this game, I'd pay for it. It's really cool.
Yeah, I totally would too. Multiplayer.
But multiplayer, yeah, that'd be cool. I don't know about co-op.
Have shark battles. That'd be great.
Okay, so again, last thoughts. Are we good? Are we talked about this? I mean, I feel like we've talked about it a lot. The setting's fantastic, visual storytelling, music is amazing, runs really well. It's got the goods and the bads as far as feelings go, and it's, I think, as close to a really, I'm not going to say perfect, but it's a very good.
Yeah,
very cool,
nothing. No game can be perfect, but this is about as close as you can come.
Yeah, right. It's very short. If you don't want to play for hours and hours and hours, you don't have to, because it's only about 3 hours long. And then afterwards, you can do whatever you like.
It took me to beat
it.
Yeah, I beat it in 97 minutes.
Okay.
Wow.
I spent a lot of time exploring, and it still took me 3 hours.
I explored a lot and stuff though too. I don't know.
No, but you were going Super Saiyan all the time, probably.
Oh yeah.
That speeds you up a lot.
I traveled on dolphins and sharks. I did not swim very much in this game.
Yeah, I am the kind of guy who, because so here's a true story. Back in the dawn of time, when computers were still young and they started making 3D games, one of the 3D games they made was Descent. Okay, and Descent sold itself as a 6-axis game. In other words, you were flying a thing through tunnels and whatnot. Because games were so primitive at that point, they didn't have good maps, and unfortunately,
it's very confusing.
Descent was one of those games that didn't have good maps, because one of the things it didn't do was tell you how high or how low you were. It just told you what the layout of a base was.
Oh,
and so with Descent, I kept on getting lost. Like, I would look at the map and I go, okay, well, I know I'm going to be here, but I don't know how to get there.
Yeah.
And so the great thing about ABZÜ is that ABZÜ doesn't mostly do that. For a large portion of ABZÜ, you can just sort of swim around, and it's almost always very easy to find your way, because you can look around you and see where you're going. Yeah. And I think ABZÜ is good for that, because it solves that entire problem with 6-axis gaming.
Yeah, it's a good job of feeling really open, but still funneling you right where you need to go.
Yep.
Yeah.
So,
really good.
Okay, my final thoughts very quickly. So there is a school of thought that says some of these things are not games. They're like, you don't kill anything, and you don't actually interact with much.
There's no real puzzles. Yeah. Shit.
Yeah, there's no DLC. Oh my god.
There's no season pass. Not a game.
I didn't have to spend $20 on day one. What am I doing wrong?
I couldn't pre-order this thing before I'd even seen gameplay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So those people, you are not going to like this game. Do not play it. Right? You've tried Gone Home. You've tried Firewatch.
I mean, if you really like scuba diving, you'll probably still like this game.
Yeah.
Yes. So you guys, I'm sorry, but this is not the game for you. But people who want to have an experience, who enjoyed the story of Gone Home, people who enjoyed Firewatch, people who enjoyed Esther, all those things, you will love Primordia.
Well, that too.
You'll love ABZÜ.
It's pretty primordial.
And the one thing that I do want to say is to people who have played Journey, you absolutely need to play ABZÜ, because I think ABZÜ is actually better than Journey.
I think so too.
The reason why I think that's so is because, like I said earlier on today, ABZÜ is about stopping and smelling the roses. Journey is about moving forward all the time.
Yeah.
And as a result, Journey feels like a funnel, where this feels like...
This game is a lot more fun to play, but I think Journey has a bit more of a simplistic story, which is fine as well, too.
Yeah. And so, my take on it really is, if you want to see a beautiful, gentle, slow, deeply thoughtful game, play ABZÜ. That's what it boils down to. It's worth, right now it's $20. But if they sold it on the store for $60, it's worth that.
Absolutely.
It absolutely
is. I keep mentioning it. The music alone.
Yeah. We've got the link to Austin.
That's a Hollywood style. That's as good as any. That's like, to me, it's on the same par as Fantasia.
Yeah, it's
actually
great.
interestingly, one of the reviews I read actually made that point that this is possibly the closest you'll come to a Fantasia style game. And the reason
Yeah,
why I
Yeah.
said that was because the music picks up with what's going on around you and it slows down with what's going on around you.
yeah. I actually think the
It's
music is a bit more prevalent than in Journey. Not that the music in Journey isn't great. It is. It's absolutely wonderful. But I think Journey would
yeah,
still work as a really great story just visually without the music.
Yeah.
This game, I
right,
think, relies a lot more on the music, which I think
Yeah.
is
right.
great.
It's a big
And
part of
and
the
and I,
narrative.
and I think that when you contrast Journey and you contrast this, Journey has a lot more visual moments than this does. Like that whole sliding down the sand dune and going through
Well,
the
yeah, that's kind of why I find this game to be almost a Journey ripoff because the sand dune thing. As soon as I hit a current, I was like, "All right, this is the sand dune
this is the
part.
sand dune
I
thing.
wonder if
Yeah,
this will
Yeah.
end with me in a very somber, dark area," and it did.
Yeah, a couple of
it,
times it
it
definitely
beat for
does. Yeah.
beat is exactly
right.
like Journey. I think it does. I think it does it a bit better. And like we said before, this is full of life. Journey is very empty. Of course, that's the theme of Journey.
That's
Yeah.
the theme of Journey. Yeah, I
The
mean,
cool thing,
even though there
when
are
ABZÜ
other,
throws you in a dark spot like that,
yeah,
you're soon moved into a little, the little hole, the cave in the wall, and
yep,
it opens up into this big, bright, beautiful thing, and it's really like pretty wowing. It's like, oh man,
Yeah,
I
yeah,
love this.
it's
It's so
gorgeous.
cool.
right.
Uh, yeah, uh,
The difference here again is that where Journey allows you to play with other players, this feels a lot more empty by contrast because
Hmm.
there aren't any other players. There's just the
yeah,
little robots and the fish. But the thing is that the fish and the robots make up for the emptiness
Yeah. The
because
more
this
I,
is
the
a
more I
lot
think
more.
about it, the more I can't really compare the two.
yeah.
Even though they're very
There are a lot of
comparable, it's hard to be like if I'm stuck on a desert island, no pun intended. What am I gonna play? It'd be a pretty hard pick because they're
It,
both such
yeah.
different experiences. But
yeah,
um, no, this is amazing. This is a great game. I mean, it's literally Journey meets Flower, and it's about as
Yeah,
great as you can expect that to be.
yep,
And
yeah.
right,
I can't wait to see what this team does next.
yeah,
I
me
I
too.
need to learn what that art director's name was because he
He
held his
what
own
he did
amazingly in
Journey
this.
and Flower, just so you know.
Yeah.
The developer for this is Giant Squid. They were published through 505, and
Mhm.
so I'm very curious to. 505 is making some interesting choices as publishers go, so they're worth watching.
Matt
Uh,
Nava is this game's director and was the art director on Journey and Flower. Yeah,
Right.
I'm gonna follow him on Twitter.
The giant squid was actually really interesting. They gave themselves a little nod because the first time you run into the krakens, they're posed just like their little.
Huh.
yes,
They're posed just like their little
Speaking
logo.
of Journey, Matt Nava apparently did a TED talk about Journey, so I'm gonna watch that
oh
after we're
cool.
done
I'll
here
watch
cool.
that.
because that sounds
Yeah, I'll watch
awesome.
that.
Well, yeah,
All
Yeah.
right. Well, I think it's pretty safe to say we all pretty much recommend this game pretty full-heartedly or
yeah.
wholeheartedly.
I'm not going to ever uninstall it. Probably this is gonna be a game
Yeah.
where if I'm like I just want to relax for a little bit, this is gonna play this.
Sure.
All right. Well, is that it, guys?
That's it. So let's talk
Okay.
about what's happening next because, as most of you know, we're doing 4 in February. So we have decided that for 4 in February reasons, we are not going to play another game for the
The
last week of February. We are going to come back next week and do a 4 in February podcast in the slot. So, whoever wants to join me and whoever else wants to be here, that's what we'll be doing. We'll be talking about how our 4 in February went, whether or not we're still playing games, what games we're planning to play in the last 48 hours. So
Yeah.
if you want to join us for that, that's what we're going to be doing. It won't be a normal Game Club week. At the end of that podcast, we will be picking new games.
Yep.
So, if you are interested in Game Club and not so much in 4 in February, you need to stick around for the end of that podcast. So,
Yeah.
there you go. No choices this week.
Yeah. Which is good because I haven't made any.
Yeah, I haven't. There's too many games that I think everyone should play, so that I haven't decided to pick what yet. So now I've got a week to figure that out. And I've got one more week to beat Undertale.
Yeah, right on.
You'll be alright. Undertale's not a long game. It depends on how you play Undertale.
Yeah.
So, you'll be fine.
All right, guys. Well, thanks again for joining us on a Twinstiq Game Club podcast. That's Twinstiq with a Q, by the way. .com is our website. And yeah, thanks for joining. We'll see you next time.
Yeah.
Sure thing. Bye-bye, folks.
Bye.